Welcome to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. My name is Dave Deacon, and if you're following along at home, this is episode 110. Well, technically it's season 1, episode 10, but we put them together and make 110. Now, if you would, go ahead and take a second to hit the subscribe button on your streaming service, so that way you'll always be the first to know whenever the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast drop. As usual, we're coming to you from Dr. Jason Warren's research lab on the agronomy farm at Oklahoma State University, and in this episode, we're talking all things Oklahoma wheat, including the 2022 crop and what to expect with the potential of increasing drought in the area, what insects to watch for, and what variety works best in your area. All of that with Oklahoma State University Extension small grain specialist, Dr. Amanda Silva. You will be able to find all the resources on our website, reddirtagronomy.com. Now let's start with a quick trip around the table so you know who is whom. Now the guy behind door number 1 is a Cancer. He likes long walks on beaches and high-yielding wheat following an enriched strip.
It's like sorghum. Why is sorghum so low limiting? Because you put it in crap ground and you put corn in the good ground.
That is Oklahoma State University Extension Precision Nutrient Management Specialist, Dr. Brian Ernell. Now behind door number 2 is a guy who spends a lot of time on Highway 412 between Stillwater and the Oklahoma Panhandle. He was voted by his high school as most likely to doppelgang for Matthew McConaughey. Well, I mean, it was kind of a small school. And he's known far and wide for his research into Oklahoma soils.
I don't even know why I'm talking. Because, I mean, like, I'm so bad at growing wheat. Brian should be talking. I'm so bad at growing wheat, it's not even funny.
Those are the golden tones of Oklahoma State University Extension Soil and Water Conservation Management Specialist, Dr. Jason Warren. And finally, behind door number 3 is a guy who once rescued a family of ducks that fell into a storm drain. He rewired his Nintendo 64 in college to create a farming simulator and can leap any soybean plant in a single bound, especially the newly emerged ones. Of course, we're talking about Oklahoma State University Extension Cropping System Specialist.
You said last year that if you grew wheat, it was basically going to be a failure across the state. So I guess the question we have to ask is, on your ground, are you going to grow? All right, so it is going to be a great wheat year across the state.
Dr. Josh Lofton. If you'd like to ask the group a question, then jump over to reddirtagronomy.com and leave a question there, or send an email directly to podcast@reddirtagronomy.com, and we will discuss your question on the next podcast. Let's start out with advice for producers who are dealing with a few insects that they may not be used to this time of year, with an update as of July 17th, 2022, with Dr. Josh Lofton. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast.
Yeah, I mean, blister beetles is just one of the things that are starting to be an issue. We're seeing just pockets of them. I mean, that's the big thing with pockets. We're also seeing bigger pockets of Japanese beetle also showing up in like soybean fields and stuff like that. So it's one of those things that now is the time that you need to scout, and then to be quite honest, you got to make the decision on the crop and your application on a lot of these. The application is relatively cheap per se, but you're still, a lot of people are at that threshold that they're going to need a rain in the next 7 to 10 days, and it does not look like that's too promising. So you got to really start making that evaluation, because it's not one of those things with things like a whole group of Japanese beetle or a good chunk of blister beetle that you can just wait and see if we can make that application. It's time to make the application to save the crop, or you just say that the crop is too far gone, the heat and the drought are going to get it, and so I need to do something. The biggest thing is we've seen blister beetles and things that we don't normally see blister beetles in. Brian's had some in corn. One of the crops they're really not supposed to go in, really only, I talked to Tom about that, and he said really only when they're desperate that they'd go into. But they had a perfectly good soybean around. So I mean, it's just, folks that are looking to roll up corn or roll up milo, make sure that we have a good lookout on things. Also, they're going to be in alfalfa and stuff like that. So if you have enough alfalfa to make some cuttings, you just make sure you don't have any blister beetles before you hay that out.
What product would you run for blister beetle? And is there
I'm assuming there's a layback to when you can swath it, because I'd be thinking about that thing too. Because if you got blister beetles in now, they're defoliating.
Yeah.
You're losing hay value if you're going to roll it up.
Yep.
But what's that layout time from spray to? So what products are you running for blister beetles?
Really, just any pyrethroid's going to work. The question then becomes what pyrethroid is going to depend on your harvesting interval for a hay crop. And just check the label, because I'm not entirely sure if that's from haying or if that's to feeding. I'm pretty sure they have grazing restrictions, so that would probably be to feeding. So if you are going to lay it out in the field for 7 days and then it's going to bale up or something like that, you might have that, to where you can cut relatively soon after. But just check the labels and stuff like that. That's the most important thing. The biggest issue that I think is building right now is that if you start looking at grasshopper numbers, they're getting pretty substantially high. And all we're going to need is a new lay, and a new group of new brood of grasshoppers coming out, and then we're going to start to have some issues. And that's where things get a little trickier, because you have to get grasshoppers really early, because things like loris band we don't have on the docket anymore, and that's what we used to go out and get these very, very tough things like 2 and 3 molt grasshoppers. Loris band would be able to go get you, but that's not an option anymore. So we have to make sure to get grasshoppers really, really early, because once again, pyrethroids will work if they're very small nymphs, and that'll just be something you can go after. But once they've molted a couple times and they're bigger grasshoppers, which is where most people will see them, I don't trust the efficacy of just pyrethroid out there on big grasshoppers. The big thing is that on these hot and dry years, the grasshoppers always seem to be an issue the last 2 weeks in July. And if you don't know, we usually have this when it rains periodically. There's a I think it's a fungus that actually will naturally keep the grasshopper population in check. But since we've been so hot and dry in our dryland fields particularly, that fungus is just not going to be there. And so we don't have that natural control of grasshoppers like we normally do. And so this is those kind of years that we're going to have these things that kind of pop up on various other things. And I think that's why blister beetles have become such an issue, because we just, even if you go drive around, we don't have the pigweed volume we normally do, and we don't normally see blister beetles, go this bad into crops, but we don't have the pigweed numbers that we normally do, and that they prefer the pigweeds, and so they're just moving off into soybeans and other crops, just going after it. The good thing is that some of our other things we haven't seen the stink bugs. We haven't seen that bad. I've had some people call about whirlworms being a lot worse than normal. I haven't seen them be worse. That they potentially are in pockets, but I also think we have a lot less vegetation, so it looks definitely worse than it normally does. So the good thing is some of our normal pests seem to be not flourishing or not overdone, but some of our other ones are more kind of on edge ones that we don't typically deal with on a year in, year out basis in our crops are really really high this year.
Are you seeing the blister beetles in a certain part of the state, a certain part of the region, or is it just pretty much anywhere in Oklahoma?
I mean, they can occur anywhere. We had we posted on Twitter, and that was here in Perkins, but we've sprayed for them out east. We've sprayed for them a little bit in the west. So I mean, they're there. They're just going to be in pockets. They're not going to be like this big widespread thing like potentially the grasshoppers or something like that will be. They'll just be in these little pockets that just pop up here and there. And once again, they're very hard to appropriately scout for, because they will be on field borders and stuff like that in very small numbers, and then 2 or 3 days later they'll just explode and move on. So it's just been one of those things that for us on small plot trials, they can take out a trial in a weekend, no problem. For bigger production fields, they'll just take a big chunk out of the field.
I was seeing on Facebook, Washington County was posting the information on blister beetles, so they must be getting quite a bit of problems.
Yeah, the biggest things that I've seen are people finding them in alfalfa, which I mean it's common. There's documentation on what you do with alfalfa to make sure you don't have blister beetles. So I mean that's a common thing. And you know, the soybean will probably just be hit or miss depending on how much weed pressure you have in the field.
Jason, so Josh mentioned we've seen a lot of this conversation on Twitter. Josh mentioned rolling up corn and soybean.
Yeah.
What's the impact? You look at this going into this season. Is there the hay's going to have value, economic value, but is there enough negatives to be thinking about not rolling it up that you should keep that cover on the ground as we go through, nutrient wise, cover wise?
I mean,
your soil water conservation me.
It would certainly depend on your rotation. You know, if you're going into wheat, it's not going to make a hell of a lot of difference on wheat. In fact, I mean, that's just wheat doesn't respond to residue unless there's very specific rainfall pattern conditions that would allow it to, and that would be, you know, a wet fall, excessively hard rains that are going to run off. If you have the residue, you're going to get more water in the ground and have a better start to your wheat crop. But otherwise, it's not going to make that much difference. I mean, if you're going into summer crops next year, particularly, you know, later planted stuff where you're going to get into the heat of the summer, the residue is going to be pretty critical. And then it's, you know, it all kind of depends on where you're at and what your rotation is and how bad you need the freaking hay and the money off the hay. Because, I mean, I don't know what's going on in Texas. It's crazy. Like, you know, you mentioned Twitter. They're talking about long lines of cattle trucks hauling cattle to town. And, I mean, that's going to happen.
I talked to a company guy the other day that said they're rolling up corn and soybean all throughout south central Texas, and it's just moving north. And well, even some other folks in Oklahoma, I've been seeing enough notice in Oklahoma about soybeans getting
Western
laid
Kansas.
down.
Yeah.
Eastern Oklahoma.
Yeah,
Western,
everywhere.
Yeah. So Rendell's up in Ottawa County, talking to them the other day. You know, we go through and I drove up to Miami last weekend. Corn is 7 foot, 8 foot tall. It looked amazing. And I asked Zach, how's everything looking? It's like, well, the edges look good.
Yeah.
You get in there's no ear, so we have massive biomass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they've got no ear.
There's a lot of corn like that.
Yeah.
There are a lot of dryland corn down here. And like you say, you look from the road, oh, yeah, it's like, oh, happy.
Yeah.
And then you get up on a high spot on the road and you look out over the field and it's all brown.
Yeah, the
toast.
The big thing is, you know, we've gotten a lot of questions about nitrate toxicity and how you manage hay and stuff like that with nitrates, and you know that also changes your dynamic on what residue is going to be left in the field with how much stock you have to leave and that kind of thing. So
because with corn, you know, with milo and like forage sorghum and sorghum sudan and stuff, if you got a potential high nitrate issue, you can cut a little high to get less of that high concentrated nitrate in the stalk down, because that's where a lot of it is, right? But on this corn that's burnt up, I mean, is it going to have a lot of high nitrates in that stalk, particularly once it's tried to make the grain, whether it's made the grain or not?
I think it was Karen Jones that tested some corn that went high, and so they're going to leave it in the field to graze it. So while corn's not what we expect to test high in nitrate, it's one of the last things with the conditions we have. It grew early, would have had access to a lot of available nitrate just because the last crop wasn't used, wasn't leached. It was there, so we had, during that period where it could grow, we had a lot of evapotranspiration. We had a lot of uptake in nitrate, which means we probably had excessive accumulation in the plant, or just luxury. That's what we're going to get to, luxury consumption. And when you have luxury consumption of nitrate in a crop such as corn or sorghum, and then you have this drought stress, nitrate's pretty good. And it's going to, that stock on those that nitrate's going to be higher on that corn crop. But can you graze it, put a little roughage out there, beat down the stalks? Do you want to mix it? You know, there's a lot of folks talking about haylage, silage, those kinds of things, and that's probably...
Well, and that's, like I say, going back to cutting height, you know, if you go out there and you can at least test it while it's standing, then that's the first place you can make a decision on what you're going to do. And if it's high at the bottom of the plant, you know, you can cut a little high. And the benefit of that, you know, you ask about the detriment of taking this biomass, and you're always worrying about the ground cover. Well, ground cover is good, and if you take it all off, you know, you can have potential problems, particularly if you're growing a summer crop the next year. But if you're pulling all this nitrate out of the bottom foot of the freaking plant versus cutting it high and leaving it, you can gain a lot of benefit from doing that if you've got high nitrate stalks in milo and corn, and then forage sorghum and all that kind of stuff. So it'd be a good idea to check it before we start just going out there and rolling it up to hell won't have it. Because I think, I don't know, I grew up in cattle country, and I know they're going to be sucking wind. And I know guys right now in the panhandle that are, like at our research station, Cameron, the superintendent, he told me that somebody drove by and then called him and asked if they could roll up the weeds on a pivot.
Yep.
That's foul. I mean, because we've got to go rolling it up.
You're talking about roughage. We just don't have a lot of that to
You're
go around
right.
either. I mean, it's not like we have a ton of Bermudas, and native hay that's just kind of sitting around. So
that last Mesonet days, the wettest on record map that they put out, where we have that swath basically from northeast Oklahoma that cuts down through that. So of the last 130 years, where you rank as wettest, and there's a whole brown swath of 130. So we're the driest on record for this period.
Yeah,
and it cuts through from northeast over kind of south of Enid and drops down.
Yeah. Well,
we're above 120 at every part of the state except for the Panhandle, which is at 88. So, and like you said,
living a dream out there.
Yeah, they're in that oasis. But that northeast to central, right in through Stillwater, down through Oklahoma City, down through the Ardmore, central part of the state. That that's 130. That's
and
potentially the driest year on record to date.
And that's brutal, dude. I mean, east of Oklahoma City is, and we saw this back when Brian and I first started, or in 11 and 12, is the eastern half of the state is not built for this crap. Nope. And they, the impacts on the eastern half of the state will be so much more intense because they just aren't built for it. Their and I'm not being negative to any grower or landowner in eastern Oklahoma. I'm just saying their mentality is not set up for it. Their production practices are not set. At least the guys out west, I mean, they've done it, and they do it regularly.
The soils aren't built for it either.
No, the soils aren't built for it.
Soils are not built for a deep well. They don't hold moisture. A lot of those soils are that clay at depth. Going down to 12 inches and find a heavy clay that's not going to hold water is pretty common. So you don't have the water holding capacity. So they're drought. They go dry so much quicker than out west, which typically
and they've been longer without rain than a lot of places out west. It's brutal.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah,
we should probably talk wheat.
Yeah, we should talk wheat.
I'm listening.
But it's just like the cattle deal and the forage deal. I don't know. It's not good.
Well, and
I mean, it's not.
I think a lot of it, we'll bring in Amanda to this conversation. A lot of it's going to depend on how much wheat pasture we can actually get in this year, and we're not but a couple weeks, 6 weeks or so from.
We're going to start planting.
You really
wheat.
need to start looking at wheat. So what are we looking at from a wheat perspective?
Well, we already didn't get much forage last year, so. Hopefully, we'll be planting by mid-September. It depends if you're graze out a little earlier than that.
Well, Labor Day's right around the corner. It's time.
It seems like, I just finished harvesting. Not ready for that conversation yet.
So I guess let's just take a trip down memory lane. How was the 2022 wheat crop overall across Oklahoma?
Should we introduce our new guest, Dave?
I think we ought to do like the name that guest.
Oh, name that guest.
Yeah. Okay. You're right.
Okay.
We need to introduce.
Well, put the Brian. Can you provide us a little game show song?
As everybody can see at the bottom of the screen, it says right there.
Yeah.
This is Dr. Amanda Silva, the small grain specialist here at Oklahoma State University, and Amanda, you've been with OSU 3 years, 3 years. Okay, so this is your I guess third crop, second crop officially.
Yeah, will be the fourth
Okay.
planting
Okay.
season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And has this the most challenging?
The toughest.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The one going in we're about to do right now.
Yeah, and the year that we just went through also, it was really, really difficult. And actually analyzing all the data from this year was one of the hardest. So variable. And really, I was just trying to save everything that we did. Look at the Panhandle, didn't get any rain, so producers didn't get any rain since planting. But we're able to get good data from there. We lost a trial in Southwest because we didn't have good stands there, a lot of variability. The drought was so much that when we thought about harvesting it, it was all taken over by the weeds. And yeah, it was really tough year. But some producers were able to harvest some, and the wheat prices really helped.
It seems like every year it's something.
Yeah.
And last couple of years it's been freezes, and this year it was the lack of moisture. And going across the state and looking at several of the wheat crops, it looked great from the highway, kind of like what Jason was saying about the corn. It looks great from the highway, but whenever you get out in it, and you stand over that wheat crop and you look down and it's thin and you can see the cracked ground underneath it. It kind of, you take it back from it. But, there's that resilience from all the wheat producers, next year we're going to do it. So I don't want you to handicap the next wheat crop, but there's a lot not in the favor of the next year crop.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, not only here, but also in the world.
Exactly.
And which brings a lot of stresses. But yeah, like you said, our producers are resilient, our crop is resilient, so we have to remain positive, even though the conditions now do not look really promising. But input costs are on the mind of everyone. Last year, maybe a lot of people had already bought their fertilizer. We didn't have issues with disease, but we did have issues with brown wheat mites, which is not a very common thing. That was a challenge to find products. But anyways, we'll see. We're really hoping to be able to get a good stand, to have some forage to feed our cattle. But we'll have to play by ear like that.
Well, and so many. I mean, that's one of the advantages of a wheat program like OSU. There's always a variety that works in a part of a state that is able to stand up to many of the conditions. And this year, the producers are really going to have to study their wheat varieties and study the data that you gleaned from the last crop to help make that decision for what variety do I put in the ground? What battle do I want to go against? Is it the potential for a fungus, or which I don't know that we'll have that problem this year, but or what do I want to attack, and what can I manage while I'm managing this crop?
Exactly, yeah, and it's a great advantage that they have with the information that we develop, that we plant trials throughout the state and give that information. It's all available on our website. And yeah, picking their battle. So that's gonna be important.
What did any varieties jump out, or what kind of give us an overview of what you saw with this last year? I saw some things in the field that I wasn't expecting with certain cultivars. So what did you see?
Well, maybe some varieties we had not seen experiencing a drought like this year. So maybe some varieties didn't perform as we expected this year, but it's just because we discovered it wasn't as drought tolerant as we thought.
Yeah. And that's, because I got to hang out with you at some of the field days out northwest Oklahoma, and I was amazed, that some of this freaking wheat survived.
Mm-hmm.
Like the stuff out by Balco. Holy crap.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked good.
It looked good.
And there were varieties that performed pretty well. And then there was some that, like you say, that may have been perceived as drought tolerant that
we're not doing well. Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, and I think also it was just the drought also in the fall or their ability to tiller or not tiller, that also really influenced their stand later on.
Yeah.
But really their ability to produce grain was the
Yeah.
it was
Because
just
I've got a
not
phone
well.
call from a news outlet, and they left a message asking what farmers can do and varieties and all that stuff, and naturally our environment selects for some level of drought tolerance, but damn,
Yeah.
how far you can't grow. Somebody was asking me or making a comment about some irrigated. I guess it was you, Brian, about down southwest. Every time they irrigate, the crop grows a little bit and then it stops. I'm like, well, yeah, that's how plants work.
Doesn't sound like
No, you didn't say it, but you were telling me a story about somebody who said it. But I mean, the wheat, some of them look damn good, and then some of them look like hell.
I was actually, when you talk about Balco, I was really surprised this year to see that short season wheat do so well there.
Did it do good? Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually an experiment. I even, when we were there, even mentioned to producers, I was just putting there to see if that is an option for an extreme dry land environment, if having a shorter season wheat would be actually helpful for their system. Should we really start breeding for wheat with reduced season? But this year was so different that we need more years for sure to know that. But I was very surprised about it.
And the challenge is if you could get a good forecast for August through May, then you can make that decision. And
we
I
can make a lot of decisions if you can give me that forecast.
Yeah, and
Tell me what it's going to do for the next year. I'll tell you.
yeah. But what's the ramifications of if you plant that, with the expectation of drought, and you're going to combat the drought with that, and then it starts frickin' raining. What's the downfall of doing that? I mean, are you going to clip the yield pretty good on that short season in a good year?
I think what it will depend in that scenario will be freeze. So that could be something that we could get caught with. Yeah. Because there we planted at the same time we planted others. So in good years, I do expect it to do really well.
Yeah.
But if we planted the same day like we did there for demonstration purposes, we could get caught with freeze. But
because it matures earlier.
It matures earlier. Yeah, it's everything earlier.
Yeah, that's brutal.
So we could make it more. We don't have scientific data on that yet, but it could be more nitrogen use efficient. It could be more water use efficient because it has a reduced season. So there is a possibility that those varieties with reduced season are more efficient on the way they use resources. But if we get caught by those late spring freezes, then that could be a...
Yeah, I've noticed up at the Kansas stuff that I did that some of the OSU experimental did really well that was up there, and then two of the Colorado states, some of the shorters did really good. But it's going back, and that was my question. It's like, do you just drop in and say, okay, every year is going to be this way, or...
No.
I think that's why it's good to... Yeah, sorry.
No, you go.
No, I think that's why it's good to have different. Just have different varieties.
Yeah,
Diversify, yeah. I don't know about blending all on the same field.
No, I don't like that either. That's like multi-species cover cropping. I don't know if you're ever going to get all the good stuff out of each one versus just planting a couple.
I like one side of the field, even like diversifying maturity. I think that's so important, especially for those late spring freezes that we have so often.
I don't know if you know this, either one of you or all three, because I don't. On average, how many different varieties will a single farmer run?
That I don't know. What do you think?
I would say 2.
I was thinking 2 or 3, maybe.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jason?
Well, based just on the people I know and talk to, 2 would be a good average because they don't. Maybe 3.
Unless they're seed dealers and they're trying to.
Because it's so much. I mean, if you're buying seed wheat and then you're planting it, you gotta, how about you got a field where you're gonna plant your seed wheat and then hold that back. I mean, the more varieties you have, the more storage containers you have to have. Whereas if you just have one, you just fill everything with that one. So but it makes sense. I mean, it's just like everything else. If you diversify the genetics on your farm to be a good, suite that's going to situate with some variation, then you won't have to.
And that diversifying and not actually blending, it's a very important thing even for fungus
Well, that's what
development.
I was thinking. Yeah.
So when you grow like different varieties with different susceptibility all blended, you could
That's
actually
a disaster.
put more pressure on that resistant gene.
Yeah.
In talking
makes
simple terms,
Yeah.
but you could put pressure on that and break the resistance
Because
faster.
you're basically supporting the growth of that pest near
Yes.
a resistance, which means it has more
Yeah.
pressure on it than having a whole field of something with resistance and have less than pest pressure.
That's interesting
yeah,
because
I hadn't
isn't
and more
that.
risk to mutate the
Yeah.
fungus and
isn't
break
the
the
blending
resistance.
like wasn't the primary reason initially to deal with disease because you
So-
would get one that was like stripe rust and one that was leaf rust because you didn't know which one you were going to get that year. So
Yeah, but then I'm talking on the same pathogen in that case. So
Yeah.
growing variety susceptible to stripe rust.
Yeah.
Not to stripe. And well, growing susceptible at all, I think you're just increasing the fungal population and increasing the chances of breaking the
Well,
genetic
it's-
resistance for varieties that are nearby. But I know there is some controversy on the discussion of blending. And yeah, I guess that's my perspective, but I know there are different perspectives on that.
But yeah, I mean, like blending. I don't know. I'm not a pathology guy.
Yeah, me
but,
neither.
But it seems like it's more managerially easier if you have, if you're gonna say you got a variety that's susceptible, but it's a thoroughbred with respect to yield and quality and all that kind of stuff. You plant that over here, and then you plant your workhorse over here that can handle anything. And I mean, if you're gonna blend them. Well, why would I blend them and have 2 quarters that I'd have to spray to control the disease on the one variety when I could just put that one variety on a quarter and only have to spray the damn quarter?
Exactly. But that's also on the case that we usually mention, like be aware of what is the resistance of
Yeah.
your variety, because sometimes people are not so aware, okay, this is resistant, this is not, so do I need to fungicide or not?
Yeah. Well, and that's another reason why guys probably or farmers don't have a lot of different varieties, because they go out, look at a field, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna spray the whole damn farm, right? Because it's it's easier, maybe,
Or
but you're
something,
not as
yeah.
resilient. But and times like this make us think about things to make us resilient.
Yeah. And if we can plant something that is resistant and you don't have to spend money with fungicide, that's
Yeah. I haven't ever figured that out, because if you got stuff that's high yielding and it's susceptible, and you just plan on spraying versus planting stuff that's resistant. I don't know.
but not as high
I'm
yielding.
not even. I don't even know why I'm talking. Because I'm so bad at growing wheat. Brian should be talking. I'm so bad at growing wheat. It's not even funny.
No, but actually,
they did that with sorghum. There was a lot of
Yeah.
folks, especially the further north you got in Oklahoma, particularly once you got into Kansas, with the sugarcane aphid. They said literally it is more economical to grow KS 585, which was extremely susceptible,
Nice hybrid.
and just spray it twice than it was to grow some of the early SCA tolerance.
Yeah,
because the yield of 585 in those conditions were just exponential compared to the early SCA
That was a
tolerance.
great hybrid.
So I think there's that back and forth too, that you got to judge on saying, hey, I got this one that maybe is a great grazer, good yielders, or can take a beating and keep on going. I know I'm going to have to spray for stripe rust, and I'm okay with that. But it gets me all of my other things
Yeah.
that I have. So it's
I
one of
guess
those
that's the way
things
to
that
look at
it's good to always take into account that these things aren't in a vacuum. We can't just say, well, we're gonna have stripe rust resistance, but then give up that, oh, it's a horrible grazer, because
Yeah.
I'm in a dual purpose system. So
but the good thing is that we do have a lot of materials out there for producers to select. Like, I think at our trials at La Homa this year, we planted, I can't remember, maybe 55 varieties, 50 something.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of options, which actually it's difficult when you have too many things to choose you just don't choose anything. You just
Yeah.
keep with what you have.
So if you're talking to a producer, how do you walk through that? Okay, here's a list of 55 varieties, and it's set down time with Amanda, and you've got to walk through. What's some of the first things you start doing in that conversation?
So the main thing is that there is not like a right or wrong variety, because like you're saying, like Josh was saying, it depends how they want to manage, what they are willing to manage. So I guess the steps on the conversation would be what production system you are. Are you in dual purpose? Are you in a grain only? And within that, something that they really need to be looking at are the ability of varieties to recover from grazing, because we've seen cases that varieties produce a lot of fall forage in our trials, but they are not good grazer, and that means they cannot recover from that canopy removal.
And that's even if you stop the harvest prior to hollow stem, they just don't grow back the biomass.
Just don't have the gas on the tank, something like that, to kind of build up back the canopy.
Yeah.
And so that's, to me, especially here in Oklahoma, that wheat is heavily used as a dual purpose. I think that's the main thing that they need to be looking at, and the data we provide helps. But of course, their own production system will tell a lot too.
Yeah.
So I want to compare to what I normally ask. So if a grower comes to you and is like, I'm looking for a new variety, the first thing you're going to do is a counter question. So what's your first counter question?
Like, what variety should I plant?
Well, if they're like, oh, what variety should I plant?
What's
the
your
first?
purpose?
What's the first thing you ask them?
Depends.
Well, the first thing, and this is one of those things that I don't think we should overlook, is that I ask, where do you get your seed from normally?
Yeah.
Because the relationship with seed dealers and agronomists and stuff like that is ultimately important. So,
sure.
that's the first question I always ask is like,
That's a good one.
where do you normally get your seed, and are you happy with that? Because it's like, oh, I'm normally an S&W guy. Well, would you be willing to try something else, or do you like S&W? Because that can cut down that 55 down to 10 real short.
That's
in real
true.
Short
Yeah,
order.
I guess I don't have like step by step that I do.
That's my
I
first
just do
question
like,
I
yeah.
throw out
First,
all the time.
what I really like to do usually is just to understand what they're doing. So that's why I say depends. Like, even when I'm at a few days, they ask me, okay, so after you talked about all these varieties, what should I pick? I'm not there to say it. My role there is just to give you all the information, and you use that to apply to your own production system. And so I am really interested in learning their production system, but I cannot really recommend one. I don't.
But that never stopped me
No.
from asking.
No.
Every year, I would always ask the small grain specialists, Jeff Edwards, David Marburger, you. I would say, so you've seen all the wheat varieties across the state. What is your number one pick? And every time, depends on what part of the state, and they'd start rattling off
And
the
they'd never
different.
freaking
and
answer.
they,
would they?
No.
Yeah.
So
I
so
need
I
that
think
silver
that's,
bullet.
Give me
that's
a damn answer.
that's a big thing that we've talked about. I talked about it a lot with David whenever he was here. Other crops or other states around the United States, depending on the crop, will come out with a top 10 list.
Right.
Oklahoma is one that has historically never leaned a direction, but like our neighbors to the east, several states come out with this is your top 10 list for this year. I mean, which do you hold that it's truer to like you said, to just give all the facts, or to say, hey, this is...
because the decision makers are the producers. So when we do, it's perspective, right? Opinion. So like you said, some people do, some people don't. We don't. And I agree not doing it. I've been asked, and I don't think I should do it, because it will depend on a lot of factors. And so when you pull up those top varieties, top in yield, but there are a lot of factors that we should include. And we know it varies. It varies in the state, and it will vary on the production system, and will vary on the way producers wants to manage it. So really, the decision who should be picking the top yielding or the top varieties, performing varieties, are the producers on their field for their reality. So
Yeah.
Do the purple people eaters do that? They do?
Do they?
Wow.
So
I was thinking just because we're so
won't throw-
diverse, right? I would hate to do a top 10 list and have to include
I don't know if they do
Altus
top
and Ottawa
10.
County. I mean,
Yeah,
if we look at
exactly.
Miami and Hobart.
I don't
Well,
know if they
I-
do top 10,
Okay.
but they do something best peaks or something,
Oh.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I think they do. Well, I think they've done that in wheat, but I don't know if they do that. Like, I don't think they do that in grain sorghum. But like soybean and corn, to the folks 2 states over, they definitely do that. And back when I was at LSU, we didn't do it either. But there are some growers that would prefer, and I'll say, it's the Mississippi State. There are some of our growers that, when I was back in Louisiana, would prefer us to say, okay, I don't want to sift through 14 locations. Just tell me the top yielding ones, and I'll make a decision from your top 10. As opposed to, I'm going to try to sift through everything, and that was, and so we had some Mississippi State farmers come to our information. We had some Louisiana farmers go to Mississippi State because it's just what they
personal
what they
preference
wanted.
of learning.
Well, you rank them by. I mean, you rank them in the location by yield, don't you, when you present them in
and
the-
that's what I say. So here is all the information, and
It's easy. The top one. At this
we rank
location.
them within a year. We give 2-year, 3-year average.
Which I like that 2 and 3 year average. I
Right?
like seeing that multi-year average from the varieties. That helps me when I'm looking at site selection.
Yeah,
on
so they can
cultivars.
look at it, and then in our case, they can look at yield side by side with protein.
Yeah.
They can look at yield in a standard management practice, in an intensive management practice. So they can really use that to study and decide what they want to give or take.
Yeah.
And we do-
I think
You do. Are you still doing the like northwest, southwest, northeast, where you do the quadrants? Because at one time we did quadrant averages where you
Yeah.
threw some variety
this
trials
year,
together.
I didn't, just because to do that,
You
in
need
a-
more locations.
we need more locations in the region, but more than that, you need to make sure you have all varieties planted in all locations within a region.
55.
Yeah.
So then if not, you're like taking out some of the varieties and you're ending up with a list of 10 that were on all same locations, and
Nope.
it could
And
be
some
a
of the
little
companies won't put them in all.
distorted.
Is that the deal? Is like some of the companies won't put them.
No, it's
they'll,
just
they'll cherry
space.
pick where they want them, right?
Well, like
Space.
Chick Shane and Enid or Chick
Oh,
Shane
space.
Lahoma
You
are
just don't have
different
enough
than
space for 'em.
The way the program works, we have locations that we call regional. So those are the locations that variety companies enter varieties.
Yeah.
But then we planted a lot more, which we call county trials. In those, we get a little bit of everything and put in those county trials. So they're usually smaller.
Yeah.
So instead of 50, now they are down to 25, maybe 30 varieties. So we cannot have everything there, but we usually do have varieties that are adapted to those regions. So what they're doing now, the companies, since last year, they are actually ranking their varieties for me. When they enter, they rank by region. So what is that? Because some companies will have, 7 varieties that they enter. We cannot have that all in all trials. So then I want to know what is their preference for panhandle. Do they really want in the panhandle?
Yeah.
Do they want it southwest? And then so they rank it, and then that's how we assign
that's a good way
the
to do it.
varieties.
Now to go back to your pick by county, state, whatever. You provide all the data, which is the way to do it, and then this gives the opportunity for the county educator to sit down with that producer and say, here's all the data. This worked well in this county, and we can go out to your land and take soil sample and all of that, and really see which one would be the best variety for you for that.
Exactly.
Your job is to provide the data, and then they make the decision.
Yes.
Yep.
Well put.
Hey, look at that. 2 for 2.
Well, and I will say, one thing that I've told county educators and growers that we've talked about on this is that sometimes your closest location is not your best location. That's sometimes a lot of people get hung up that I'm 10 miles away from this or I'm 20 miles away from this, but this one that's 50 miles away is actually probably a more a better pick at comparing to my soils, to my rotation, to my et cetera, X, Y, and Z. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. So it's not just, oh, this county did really well. It's like, oh, okay, you're dry land that's behind corn, that's in, really sandy soils. It's not this one. It's, actually this one that's pretty far away.
Yeah.
In this year, I guess I have a question for you, Brian, on...
Oh, here we go.
No, I was just thinking because, well, we did this year and we are going to continue doing it because there is some interest in our producers on seeing varieties performance under a more intensified management. We know this year we didn't have any disease. It was not the best year to maybe intensify that much, especially with fungicide, of course, no point. But we still see some response from the intensive management, let's say Lahoma, where we had just an additional 40, 50 pounds of nitrogen. So what did you see? What did you think on the nitrogen this year?
So this year, and I was going to bring that up too. So I saw some really odd things this year, and we have a lot of intensified nitrogen work this year. We had a lot of work looking at timing. We did the Gallagher and Greenhammer, comparing those two at multiple timings. Had some other stuff, but at least 3 locations, and I've got this diagnostic report pulled up. Anywhere I had a heavy dose of pre-plant nitrogen, and especially if I added sulfur, I almost guaranteed confirmed Fusarium wilton bipolar spot blotch. So by putting more than 30 pounds pre-plant, I induced root rots.
Oh, wow.
And Fusarium wilt. Where I didn't have it, it was by plot. So by plot, anything that had a heavy pre-plant nitrogen sulfur had those diseases. Right next to it, 4 foot away, disease-free. Just flat out. And I picked that up at Kansas, so up at Caldwell, and I also picked it up in Stillwater, and I picked it up down south at Chickasha. So statewide, I had that same issue with disease. What we saw this year, looking back at the Gallagher Greenhammer stuff, where we can compare timing and intensity of nitrogen, we looked at those 2 cultivars applied in one of 3. So we have a pre-plant nitrogen, we have an early spring nitrogen, and we have a late spring nitrogen. And basically looking at the combination of all 3, either 1, 2, or those 3 timings. And then we have what we call the enrich, which was an unlimited nitrogen applied either early spring, or late spring. The early spring application of the high end beat everything. Wiped out the early pre on the high rate. If we look at just the low rate, the 90 pounds, which is something that I use 90 pounds of N because I expect the crop needs more, and so I can see differences in efficiency at that rate. The 90 pre across all locations, across all cultivars, basically set the bottom quartile. It was one of the worst treatments we had in the system. It was the 90 pre, and then the 90 in late March.
Okay.
The 90 in late March was effectively because it never rained it in, right?
Yeah.
The 90 early spring was one of the best. Basically, of all locations, no plot that received pre-plant nitrogen, period, ranked in the top quarter. It was all a combination of either 45-45 split, a 90 pre. I will say the 30-60, where it only had 30% pre, was okay, but it never beat a spring 45. Even the 45 in February and 45 in March outdid the 90 pre. And so my intensification is intensifying those applications off of pre-plant. Moving off of pre-plant, doing multiple applications. We may not need multiple in-season applications. Last year we didn't, but then again, last year our yields are, significant. We're cutting 40s and 60 bushels where I want to be 60 and 90 bushel. So my intensification is, for me and what I'm doing, if I want to manage, I'm managing a smaller crop. I want it to be smaller in the early fall. I'm putting on my nitrogen. If I want 100 bushel wheat, my first shot goes down in January. I'm putting on some nitrogen in January. I'm probably coming in with a fungicide. If there's soil moisture, I'm coming in with a cheap fungicide at jointing. Maybe that's my first shot of green up. I'm going to do a green up nitrogen. Might have a fungicide shot at jointing. Might put a little nitrogen in on it. And then if everything goes well, I'm going to top it off at hollow stem with a big dose, and then I'm going to hit another fungicide at flagleaf.
Okay, good.
And that's been, even in the drought year, minus the really late nitrogen, that's been the most successful intensification. I'm looking at nutrients. I'm looking at biologicals. I'm looking at sulfur, manganese, copper, chloride. I'm looking at all that stuff. And
Sugar.
looked at sugar.
Algae.
Huh? Algae. Microalgae.
Microalgae.
Not big algae.
Regular
Microalgae.
algae.
You gotta have
Algae doesn't work.
microalgae, huh?
So yeah, we had,
Macroalgae's not good.
I don't know.
Because that's
This
what
is-
I've been using.
That's your problem.
Damn it.
Well, so you might have answered this, and Dave can cut it out if you did. But
It's
Should
staying
anyways.
so I know you've done that, to where you're moving away from the pre in grain. Are you doing that in dual purpose, or what from what you've learned on this delayed nitrogen? Can you adapt any of it to dual purpose, or are you going to have to do whole new trials for dual
No.
purpose?
So we've got dual purpose work, and thanks for keying that up. So we do have the dual purpose work, and the dual purpose work says if I'm going to have a crappy dual purpose year, just put it up front. Meaning if I'm not going to have a whole lot of growth and I want to have poor hay production, putting on that 90 pounds up front is just fine. But if I'm going to have a year of a lot of growth where I have good grazing, it benefits me to split it up and put a decent shot up front, but come in late fall, early spring, depending on the growth pattern, juice it up again. And that increased both production and quality going through that early spring. Because if we're going to, and I'll go back to it, it's all about soils and it's all about the weather, right, Jason? So a bad forage production year is typically a lack of rain.
Yeah.
A good forage production year is a presence of rain.
Ah.
Presence of rain creates losses of nitrogen.
So simple.
So simple.
When was the last time we had a good forage year on wheat?
This year had moments
Moments and spots.
and spots.
Maybe.
We had probably some of the better wheat forage this year in areas.
Like 19.
Yeah, I was thinking a couple of years ago there was good forage.
Maybe 19, yeah.
Yeah.
I think when I started,
19
because
was the
since
last
then
really good forage
Yeah.
year.
You ruined it, Amanda.
I did.
Don't
I
worry,
brought-
he blames me for
I
things
heard
all
I
the
brought
time.
Yeah,
Freeze.
Lofton brought a bunch of damn bugs up here.
He did.
And then you run the forage. And I am just kidding, people. Amanda didn't. Josh did bring
Josh,
the bugs
yes,
here. But Amanda didn't do anything.
So, Brian, in all that you were saying, just to clarify, you saw that the same thing for both varieties, right?
Yeah, so looking,
didn't
so
see
and why we
difference.
looked at those, and I want to go further in with this, is that their two uptake patterns seem to be different. You've got the data, and I'm just borrowing your data, but they grow differently.
Yeah.
And you're just sending me TikToks of guys talking about plants growing and uptake curves, but
Yeah.
by the way, that's another story.
Yeah.
But their uptake curves were different enough to justify looking into seeing since the two crops have different uptake patterns, should we fertilize differently? And the answer was this year is that even the Gallagher responded identically to the green. Gallagher whooped Green Hammer's tail end and all my stuff this year. It was really good yielding at all my locations, but the patterns were the same. We looked at across site and crazy, and you guys know if we do statistics and we look at is location significant and site year significant and variety significant. And this year, location and variety was not significant. They both responded the same way and had the same response pattern at two different
Across all
locations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which two things, I guess, that at least what I noticed in our trials, and I think it seems like you did in yours, applying nitrogen this year was a good decision,
Yeah.
even in very dry year like this, being short on nitrogen, although prices and everything. But I think it was a good management practice to do. And when you say the different patterns on the varieties, that study that we have together on Gallagher, Green Hammer, Double Stop, and IBUB. So basically, what we are seeing on their differences in uptake patterns is on partitioning. So maybe like Green Hammer is a very good variety for keeping up with both yield and protein. And so basically we're interested in seeing how is it using. So when you look at the season, we may not see differences in total nitrogen uptake when you compare it with other varieties, although you're still collecting data and analyzing it. But it seems like varieties that have higher protein, they're able to remain photosynthetically active until later in the season. So greater stay green, greater accumulation of nitrogen in the vegetative parts, so stems and leaves, and so they can use that to remobilize it to the grain later in the season if that nitrogen is not all available in the soil. But so it's all
that's intriguing to me, because you said that, and I've been hoping we can get to that point on the research, is that the totals don't look different on your total uptake. So that means that the Green Hammer is the Green Hammer Tax is a little bit slower.
It could be using it differently. Yeah. But still, that observation, I don't know if you remember, but it was from last year.
Yeah.
We weren't keeping up with the growth stages as accurately as we should. So we were harvesting on a calendar date and not on a growth stage date. But there is a chance for that, and basically what it's showing, if that holds true for when we combine ears, when we look at more ears, is that some varieties, they may have nitrogen, let's say, in the stem, but they're not as efficient in remobilizing it to the grain. Let's say Green Hammer, I think it was actually in the leaves, if I remember. It had it in the stem too. But sometimes even like the total won't change, but then that partitioning, the ability to partition to remobilize that nitrogen will change. But no, now that you're saying it may be for comparing Green Hammer and Gallagher specifically, maybe their totals changed. I just cannot remember from top of my head now.
Well, this seems like a pretty good place to take a quick break, and that's all the research leading up to this year. Now we're going to maybe take a look at what to plant, what the options, what the forecast. Jason's got his crystal ball over there that he's looking into to see what the weather patterns are going to be while we make our decisions for the 2023 wheat crop. He's bringing up the data right now. We'll discuss that coming up. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast.
While the doctors take a quick break, I wanted to remind you that the websites related to what Dr. Amanda Silva talked about are actually linked from our website, reddirtagronomy.com. If you have a question for the group, send them to us from our website, or you can send us an email directly, podcast@reddirtagronomy.com, or drop a tweet. Our handle is reddirtag on the Twitter sphere. Now let's jump back into the podcast, since Jason has looked deeply into his crystal ball and checked all of the weather charts and should have a pretty good idea or guess of what producers should expect for this year's wheat crop when it comes to moisture chances. You are listening to the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast.
And as promised, we have the weather outlook by Dr. Jason Warren. He's compiled the data. He's decided where and when it will rain, when to plant, when the wheat will actually grow across Oklahoma. He has that level of knowledge, Jason. Where and when will it rain?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to rain that much.
Okay.
Until, or at least through September. I think we're going to dust a lot of wheat in.
Yeah.
And over the last 30 days, it's very dry all over.
Yeah.
You had some monsoonal rains coming through the panhandle and then maybe clipping a little bit of northwest Oklahoma. And maybe we can catch some of that random act of God type stuff. But the forecast doesn't look good. And I don't know. I just got an email yesterday or the day before from some folks at OU that we're going to do some stuff with them to improve the connectivity between their modeling and their predictions and all that stuff and growers and like users of this information. So I'm pretty excited about that. But it doesn't look good. I think we're going to dust in a couple million acres of wheat.
So with the OU side, did they hear your conversation about them on the podcast? Is that why they came about to this?
They contacted me before that.
Okay, just check.
I don't know that they listened to the Red Dirt podcast. I'm going to have to keep an eye on that, because I just refer them to the OU guys because I don't know if they want me to tell their name to the world. You know? Some researchers are kind of sketchy about wanting their name out there.
Yeah,
but this guy's going to be good. I think he's going to be good to work with. He's been a.
Is it the one we have coming for winter crops?
Yeah,
good. We should get him on RDA. So considerations for dusting in. I mean, we'll go to Amanda, but you grew up in Western Oklahoma. Any tricks of the trade dusting in wheat? Things to be thought of?
I don't know. Earlier I said that I'm a horrific wheat farmer. I don't know if you remember that.
So we need to get your dad on, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
He's a good wheat farmer.
I don't know. Yeah. He grows rye because it's sand. It's pH 4.5. And his mom told him he was stupid for growing wheat back 30 years ago, and so he did it for a little while, and then he figured out she was right. That's a story he tells, really. He's going to get mad if he listens to this.
Hi, Jason's
but that's
dad.
True. But anyway, I don't know. I mean, just dust it in, wait for rain.
You said last year that if you grew wheat, it was basically going to be a failure across the state. So I guess the question we have to ask is, on your ground, are you going to grow?
Plant wheat?
All right, so it is going to be a great wheat year across the state.
I don't know that I'll ever plant wheat again. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, on dusting in.
So variety, temperature sensitivity, things along those lines. What do you look at on varietal selection for dusting?
Yes.
Is there any decisions there?
Well, there is on the very early planting that some varieties are sensitive to germinating in hot soils. Dusting in, that is on a producers field by field cases kind of decision. So some people were comfortable with just dusting it in, planting it shallower than usual, and instead of waiting for a rain and planting on kind of optimal conditions. If they're dusting in, yes, there is some issues. I would say to not go too shallow. That could be a problem, especially later in the fall, if you go too shallow on that. But I understand we did that a lot last year. Yeah.
Because we don't. I mean, I haven't really poked around any of the, and I guess I need to go look. But in our continuous cultivated wheat ground, I mean, we don't have any moisture in that most places, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no way to get to moisture right now.
No way.
No way, unless you're going to plant a foot deep.
That's my fear with the with
get
the
some
weather,
listers, man.
Listers. That's my fear with the forecast. The way it's looking is that if I'm looking at early forage and I'm going to go as soon as possible and dust it in, try to get it up, we better have continued rain after it comes up. Otherwise, it's going to come up and die because there's nothing down below to connect to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that's a problem, because sometimes we go there, we want to get it early, very early, and then you just get that little bit of moisture. The seeds germinate, but then you don't have enough moisture to sustain that seedling development.
Yeah, we may have some areas where they've kept it clean, like up around Alva, Buffalo. I mean, I know they're drier than hell, but where they've got fallow ground, I mean, a month ago they caught some rain if they got it in the ground, but it probably got sucked down in the middle of the earth as far as the moisture moving into the profile. But we didn't have those. Wheat cropping systems it's a fascinating deal, and I'm sure things have changed over time. But a lot of what you get in that system from a moisture standpoint downstate where it's continuous is it the rain that you get during harvest is the profile moisture that you carry through the summer. Then you get enough rain in the fall to germinate it, and hopefully everything gets connected. Then you grow the wheat.
Yeah.
And we didn't. I mean, harvest went pretty damn fast because it did not rain.
Yes.
And it hasn't rained since in most part of the state. So
we cut all of our fields in 11 days.
All of your stuff?
Yeah.
All over the state?
Yeah.
God.
Tyler put that together.
He's
another
rolling
day.
heavy,
Yeah.
keeping the highway
and it was
hot.
11 days. Yeah. I mean, we started cutting one location, then we got rain.
Yeah.
After ground was dry, yeah, it was nonstop.
That's quick.
But
Just for perspective, I mean, you've got plots how far out into the Panhandle?
yeah, we do. So we have one at Hooker.
Is Hooker the far?
Yeah. Well, we used to have one at Keys, but now we have
Yeah.
one at
Sure.
Hooker, and it's a regional trial at Hooker, so it's big.
Yeah.
We have maybe
And-
50 varieties in there, and then one at Balco.
Yeah. And then how far east?
Oh, the
Eastern
eastern
Oklahoma,
part
Alabama?
that goes used to be there, somewhere there, but we have one at Okmulgee now.
Yeah.
So intensive management plots there.
And all along the
And
edges.
then Walters and
Yeah. So you're all over. I
it's
just
all over
wanted
the
to-
state, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of highway.
So this, knowing what we know right now, and the possibility of dusting in plots or dusting in wheat, what should producers be kind of walking through their mind right now, watching, like buying the seed or making those decisions for the seed? What should they be thinking about?
Well, especially if they're wanting to go early, just be careful, I would say, with volunteer wheat. We have seen issues with that, and because those can host the wheat chromide and transmit virus to varieties or virus diseases later on, like wheat streak mosaic virus. And I would be looking at planting varieties with seed treatment. And yeah, it's difficult because you dust it in and you never know what's going to happen. And some cases that I've seen, plants die and they have to replant, but they want to try to get in there early. I don't know if we need to rush too much this year. So
I was actually out in the Texas Panhandle yesterday, and I was talking with a producer, a cotton producer, and he was telling me that his 2021 crop he planted of wheat never came up. The seeds were still in the field, and then he went along and planted cotton on top of it, and he's had since he's been irrigating the cotton, he's had both crops come up. So now he's kind of in a position like, well, what am I going to do?
What do they call that, Josh?
Disaster.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought it was some sort of
intercropping, but-
intercropping. You got to be more positive, Josh. We've got
on.
names for all this stuff. It could be a
I'd call
disaster.
that a disaster.
Come on. It's called multi-species cropping.
Intercropping system.
Intercropping.
Yeah.
Ooh, I
The
like
timing's
that one.
just a little off.
Your timing.
Growing
doesn't
wheat
work.
in the
And the wheat's
summer
not
is the
gonna-
new thing, Josh. Because the cotton canopy keeps the wheat cool like it's in the winter,
Sure.
and it does fine.
Especially in the 106 degree weather.
Yeah.
It under the canopy, it's what, 62? No.
Yeah, it's the evaporative
Instead of
power of
106,
water.
it's
evaporates and
102,
cools it
so
down
it'll be
to
fine.
Well,
cools
and
it down
actually
at
that
night.
makes me think, growing wheat in the summer, of course not. But we did planted some wheat up here in the station here in Stillwater in March, in comparing varieties from Australia, spring wheats.
How'd that turn out?
It actually turned out really well.
Really?
Yeah. So we planted some winter wheat from us, from OSU, that have a weak vernalization requirement, so they don't need much of a accumulation of cold days to transition, right, from vegetative to reproductive stage. And some that do, like OK Corral does have a higher vernalization requirement. So what you can see is the difference in of course in yield, but in number of heads produced. But of course the spring wheat did much better than planting a winter wheat so late. But we planted some varieties from Spain in November that also turned out really well comparing. And we are comparing with the materials that we have here in the U.S. and
So
yeah.
the Spain, that's a winter type?
So that's the thing, we
I
don't
thought
really
it's-
know.
Oh, okay.
So we don't know what they're not full spring, but they may not be a full winter wheat. So it's what we call facultative wheat. And so we planted in November because we didn't have enough seed, so they're coming from abroad, and it requires some cycles for us to increase. But yeah, so we don't really know what they are exactly as when we talk about it.
What do those physiologically? What do those the Spain types look like? Are they upright? Are they tall, short? What?
They were interesting. Like they have this very bulky head, like very thick head. Have like a wax in their, I don't know, this bluish color, like very, it wasn't a drought, well, it could be a drought stress, but I don't think it was. It was just a characteristic of some of the varieties. But other than that, I would say head size, number of grains per head seemed to be higher than the materials that we were comparing with from the US. And yeah, maybe didn't tiller as much, but produced bigger heads and more grains.
So that'll lead me a little bit, because you had a guest here on campus in November that your professor from your doctoral program, right? Or you worked with him during your doctoral program, talking about the yield gap, or where the next yield jump could come from. Could you kind of give a little synopsis of what he shared in November? Because that was so fat. You don't remember? Well, I guess the conversation was, is it going to come from more tillers more spikelets per spike?
Yeah, okay. Got it. I think what we are seeing is that basically what we could be doing is management practices that will promote. So basically what we have seen in the literature in our data is that yield can come from two yield components, right? So it's going to be grain weight or grain number per unit area, which then translates back to grain numbers per spike, per head. And so as a summary to all that we've seen from when he was here and presenting, and he already published a paper on that, likely yield improvements that we'll see depending on management practices that we'll be doing, but any management practices that we'll do that will promote an increase in grain number, grains per spike, that's where the yield will be coming from. Now there is some biological limits and a lot of things that will influence that, but yeah, that's.
But there was a good conversation that came out of that. Brian, you had asked him on managing tillers, and how that related to Oklahoma wheat systems. Do you remember?
Yeah. So the primer was in I'm trying to explain in my own head why some of the delayed nitrogen work has turned out the way it has, and so my only theory was partially tiller management, partially or crop management size, and then tiller management is that we're not producing the tillers to lose the tillers, because we're not in an environment that's conducive to having a ton of tillers. And in fact, and I can't wait to get Wade here in August, because I'm one hand when they talk tiller management on the East Coast, it's not making more tillers, it's actually managing for the right number of tillers, which is often less tillers, and so it's not pushing that. And so I'm going to tell you, Virginia and the East Coast is a slightly better environment than Central Oklahoma, Jason. You've been there.
Yes, it's a much better environment for growing crops.
And so my thought is the delayed nitrogen. The conversation is by delaying nitrogen, reducing tillers, could I be putting more spikelets or more berries per head by not having the resources lost to a tiller that's going to be aborted? And really curious about how many tillers are aborted in our average wheat crop. And so that was kind of the conversation line, Josh, is that no answers were come from that, but
I guess there are no answers to that. Yeah, we need to investigate.
And I guess the thing that I took out of that is, like, how far can we actually push biological limit here as compared to, let's say, like the coast of Virginia, or in my head, the Southeast or the Mid-South, where, environment is often the only, well, I mean, except for this year, but, a lot of environment limiting on wheat is is it going to flood? Excessive rain. And so, like, these cold snaps and freezes and drought and stuff like that don't happen in some of these areas to where we do push biological limit. Is how close do you think we can get here compared to, other places, Virginia, or even like Central Europe and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's difficult because when you look at, I was just having one of my students working on that. When you're saying all those events, those climate events, the intensity of those, like flooding and drought and all of those, are going to increase. So it's a very difficult question to answer. Of course, we can all discuss about it, but it's so difficult because, and that's where even like my study on the late planting comes from. Because if we are going to increase the frequency of those, I forgot the word, but those climatic events that are...
you want the acts of God kind of thing where we say that?
The problematic.
Yeah, the problematic events that happen. So it's going to increase the frequency of those. And so here we are trying to develop management practices for the weather that we have now that varies every year, like we see. And yeah, so what do we do? And so, like I said, that's where this late planting study comes from. Maybe it's not the best fit right now, but will that be a good fit later on? So I have one of my students putting together or trying to calculate the number or the frequency of drought that we have in October. So it seems like every 1 year, in every 4 years, we have a drought in October that causes producers to delay planting or dusting and delay emergency, which then puts the crop later in the season. And then when you look at the vernalization, the cumulative days of vernalization here in Oklahoma, it's decreasing. So that is using Mesonet data from the past 20 years, 30 years. And so do we really need to start looking at varieties that do not require much of the cold accumulation dates to transition, right? So lower vernalization requirement varieties. And so basically, with all that said, do we need to be looking at alternative management practices or alternative production systems in wheat so we can continue growing and not actually seeing a decline in our production here in the state?
Yeah, I've got a question. So you just said the number of vernalization days is decreasing. Is that because of the temperature in the winter or the lateness of planting?
That's the temperature in the winter. So it indicates that our winters are getting warmer. And that was, I believe, the calculation he did was in December. So that is, I think, December or January, something like that. It was really on the winter when we are really looking for those cumulative vernalization dates to use that. Yeah. So that is my master's student who is working on that
How
study.
many of our cultivars need a significant amount of?
So here in Oklahoma, varieties that are developed here, they don't really need many weeks. So we can have varieties that may need 2-3 weeks of those temperatures below 50 Fahrenheit. Some varieties, especially the ones that come from northern part, may need up to 6 weeks. So it varies. Varieties do different than that, and that is with that study that we put here, looking at different winter wheat. So like Corral does need more than, let's say, Butler's Gold. So Butler's Gold will be okay. That Butler's Gold is a short season, so we'll be okay maybe with 2 weeks of vernalization, while Corral will need more.
I had one question. I want to back up to the yield gap thing. Have you seen a number like on the physiological limit of yield of wheat? Not like we're environmentally limited here. We have good years and bad, but if you had everything perfect from planting to harvest for hard red winter wheat, what's a top end yield that is physiological possible? Is there data on that? Corn, used to say, back when I was in college, it's 300 bushel corn. That's a limitation.
Oh, I should know
but now,
that.
You got
I think
guys
there is
popping
some data on that.
But what it? I mean, do you? And then now,
Because I can speculate, but I think there's some data on that.
This is nothing but speculation. This
Yeah.
group. So I think you're
We're
fine with
speculators.
we do a lot of that.
I don't know. I mean, here.
Numbers sometimes.
Say numbers. 1, 2.
Yeah.
I just wonder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like I say with corn, that was always the fun one to ask an agronomist about the physiological, and they said, some would say, well, based on the number of photons coming to Earth in this location, the best you could do is 300 bushel. Well, I've grown 300 bushel. Of course, I was out with photons are not limiting, but. You go to Iowa or somewhere, and they're like popping 500-600 bushel on the yield contests and all that stuff.
They're limited on photons,
and they're limited on the photons. But I just wonder. I've never heard that number on wheat.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Brian. He makes up numbers like 100 bushel wheat. That's where I'm going with.
Yeah,
this
and that's what I would make.
He needs to. I'm just messing with you,
don't
Brian.
make up my data.
I'm gonna read.
I don't know. But
I've used your combine, and my 40 bushel wheat comes out of your yield monitor the same as your 100 bushel.
Again, it's 40 bushel. I think I grew you some wheat this year that was over 40 bushel.
Yeah. I just need to have you do it. I'll put out whatever treatments I want.
That's probably what
and
we
then
need
you
to do.
just plant it and love it and put your special sauce on it, and then we'll all have good wheat. But anyway, I just wondered.
Moving on.
And maybe that's something that we can try to look at with the project.
Yeah.
But just I mean, knowing the hard red winter, Amanda, can you throw out a number just theoretically what you think that if you could grow in a growth chamber, what could it be?
I don't know.
I don't know. Am I going to be too crazy here? I don't know. Yeah.
Because, I mean, on the softs, you would think 180 genetic potential greater than that.
Yeah.
But I don't know if is there something about the soft that just makes it so much higher potential, or is it I guess my question, maybe you can answer this. So we have soft wheats. We know soft wheats typically have higher yields, blah, 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 this, and hard wheats. Is it because of the genetics and the way the plants grow, or because we grow hard red winter wheats in really crappy ground and we grow soft wheats where there's better environment?
It could be.
It's like sorghum. Why is sorghum so low limiting? Because you put it in crap ground and you put corn in the good ground. The environmental limitations also kind of come with the cult.
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
Yeah. But we do mistreat more our hard red winter.
And you have like almost a feedback cycle, right? Because you breed in this environment, so then your top end potential is based on this environment because you breed for stress.
Balco.
You breed for Balco. You don't breed for Manchester, in the middle of the Midwest. You breed for this, so your top end potentially goes down to increase your flexibility.
Yeah.
So. It's one of those. It's that funny thing. It's that feedback loop that I feel like when I was back down south. It's wheat, 120 bushel wheat was nothing. I mean that was but it was also bred in that state where 120 bushel was nothing, right? So you breed for that top end, and it's almost like I think it's almost like a feedback to where maybe the hard reds that are bred for flexibility don't have the top end that the whites do, but not because the wheat's bad. It's because it's bred for other characteristics that aren't. But I would be interested to see that number because it would be very interesting to see how that environment does play that spell. And we've gotten when we did that, when folks around, not that we did it, but the folks around the United States are getting closer to that biological limit. Like some of the whole thing now, it's 550 bushel corn is the biological potential or whatever. Well, you got people that in those small plot yield contests that are getting 450, 475. So we're not too far off what is being theoretically the biological potential. So it would be very interesting to see what that is and realistically on our wheats that are grown and genetics of this region, what is that top end and how close are we actually getting some years to where just things kind of fall into place?
Yeah, I mean, what's the top end yield you've ever cultivar like mean yield at a location?
Here.
Yeah, like I mean,
As
irrigated
I can remember, irrigated.
or whatever. Like
No, I would say
is it
dry
120?
land. Since I've been here, I would say 120 something bushels per acre.
That's the biggest number you've seen.
Yeah, since I've been here.
Yeah, is that about right, Brian?
I would say at least visiting with people, I've heard those numbers. I can't say I've run
Yeah.
a combine through
It's so fun
120
to talk
hard red,
about
but
top
it's-
end high
yeah.
yields in a drought.
It's better
Isn't
than
it?
talking about the
Yeah,
drought.
right.
I know it kind of diverts my
Yeah.
frustration. So 120. I mean,
Yeah, that was one year in Homestead,
Homestead.
actually.
That was last year, wasn't
that's
it?
crazy.
It was before last year,
Was
wasn't
it
it?
the year before last?
Homestead.
Well, I mean, not
That's by
this last
Fairview.
harvest.
Okay,
I know
yeah,
before.
I think last,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And
That,
it was
and that wheat looked. You know, it's the funny thing that when we grew 5.5 bale cotton, everybody's like, "Oh, I want to see that," and I was like, "It doesn't look great. The wheat looked woolly. It was like heads all over the place and a ton of
Yeah.
biomass."
It was
But
just
you
so
run the
tall.
combine through it, and it's just got so many heads, and you know, it looked great going through. But
Yeah.
it doesn't. It's not like you can look at the turn row and be like, "Oh yeah, that's 120 bushel wheat right there." It's
Yeah.
just.
Yeah, and I mean, the average of that trial, I think, was 100, if I'm
Yeah,
not
It was very
mistaken.
good. Yeah.
So, and
Those
That's
were
the
good
same year
times.
our sorghum, because our sorghum is right behind you, did like 120 as well on dry land. It was the perfect spot with the perfect conditions.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
the good thing there was that we were able to see varieties yielding that much and also holding up protein.
yeah.
So that was
Yep.
very interesting. Because we know there is that negative relationship, but we could see that there is also a very strong genetic component on that relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we're getting ready for a presumable drought year when wheat production, I love going back to that.
Don't put that
No, I
curse
really
on us
don't.
yet,
We were gonna
Dave.
we were past
I
that.
know,
Gone.
but
Yeah,
I'm bringing it back in.
We were
we've been
talking about the
100
good
bushel
times.
wheat.
Yeah.
Now
100
you go
bushel
back to
wheat.
this.
Hello, I'm
Then
Dr.
you gotta
Reality.
just
I'm
keep
here.
on
Yeah.
I'm
dragging
Dr.
us
Reality.
back. I mean,
Davy Downer. So, what kind of pressures usually come with a drought? Aside from the heat and lack of water, but you don't really see a rust drought or a rust influx in a drought year. What pressures are there outside of heat and lack of water?
Okay, so very much like we saw this year. So we'll see increases in population of pests that we had not seen in a long time, which was the brown wheat mites. We won't see rusts because they do need some moisture, some dew, something to develop. So if it continues to be dry like this, it's very likely that we will not have problems with that. Root rots, we had some dryland root rots, and so those type of fungal will grow on wheat. Viral diseases, so if they do not control volunteer wheat, producers don't control volunteer wheat, we could have issues with that. Viral diseases, so wheat streak mosaic, we did have some issues with barley yellow dwarf virus. So it could be a little different than we are used to.
Yeah,
we
so
could
throw
throw a
out
lot
army
of
worm.
volunteer because there's places that since harvest they haven't had any rain.
Exactly.
So I mean, and if it ever does rain, that volunteer is going
It's
to
gonna come up.
I mean, if they haven't cultivated, particularly at no-till.
Yeah, so
balance.
especially this year, I would really pay attention to that.
Yeah, because that volunteer, after you plant, dust it in, then you get a stand that's 10 times higher than what you want. 'Cause you got 2 bushels worth of freaking wheat thrown out of the combine. I mean, that's a real scenario, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's
So Amanda, you spoke of working with cultivars from Australia and Spain. Tell us some of the work you're doing in Spain. With that, there's some collaborations going on with Spain, right?
Yes, there is. So I have a collaborator in Spain. He's a wheat physiologist. I've worked with him before. We have some papers published already. And so the idea came up when he was visiting here in November at OSU. And so I'll be leaving to Spain next week and I'm taking with me some data that our program has gathered in the past 20, 30 years. So looking at that database, I think we have about 40,000 50,000 data points to work with. So we'll be developing some science and hopefully bringing back very good information to our producers and actually using data from here generated from the program at actual producers' fields here in Oklahoma.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
And I mean, it's good to have that collaboration, not just within land-grant universities across the U.S., but to have different perspectives from, other continents.
That's the key. The different perspective is the key when we are trying to develop new things and have different understanding of things that sometimes we are all here looking at it every day looking at the same things, and we kind of get used to things. So having different perspectives on the issues that we deal here, and I think will be very, very important, very interesting.
And we need to have you back whenever you get back from
Sure.
Spain, and you kind of go through what all you had.
Yes, for sure.
That doesn't just say drought all the time.
And thank you for listening in on this conversation of the Red Dirt Agronomy Podcast. And if you'd like to join in on the next conversation, send us an email, podcast@reddirtagronomy.com, or send us a tweet. Our handle is RedDirtAg. We would like to thank Dr. Amanda Silva for joining us on the podcast today. And to find out more about her or any of our guests, along with any of the resources that we talked about today or on the podcast, visit reddirtagronomy.com. There you will find the show notes, and you can listen to past episodes too. For Dr. Josh Lofton, Dr. Jason Warren, and Dr. Brian Ernell, I am Dave Deacon, and we would like to thank you for listening. The proceeding is a copyrighted recording of Agnow Media, LLC, 2022. And yes, all rights are reserved.